Okay. Well, everyone, welcome to the Infinite Academy podcast. Today, we're going to, I'd like to discuss about Ascension and essentially people's gifts. I mean, I've seen quite often last year, I don't know if you guys can attest to this, but 90% of my clients have been coming to me and, after 2020, it's like they've been feeling like this call of something that is different, something's shifting. And I see a lot of my clients ask me like, I know I don't want to be stuck in this job anymore. I know that I don't want to, be this person that I am anymore. I feel like there is something shifting, some gifts are coming through. I don't know how to navigate that. And so I've been seeing that a lot with my clients. So I just wanted to see if we can bring that up and have a conversation and perhaps give people some advice on like how they can actually navigate it in their life going through this ascension process.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer?
Yeah, I think that even if they don't have the words around it for ascension or even awakening, that's what I've been experiencing with my clients as well. Like I had a woman come in the other day and she had such trepidation around her experience. She was like, I know that there's something going on with me. There's this longing and there's this awareness of suddenly being uncomfortable with her life and her limitations and wanting to transform and wanting to show up in a different way. And, even giving her that word, I think you had an awakening, was a profound moment. Like, oh, maybe a remembering or an awakening. And she's like, yeah, that resonates. What does that mean? So I'd love to hear what that means, Harry.
So I think for people who are just coming into opening up and awakening to their gifts, it's just really getting more back into their mission and purpose. They know that they're off track, as you mentioned, Ada. They're off track from their life. They know that they're supposed to be doing something different. They're not sure exactly what, but they know I'm excited. There's something an excitement, but as you said, also trepidation. So it's a mix of a lot of feelings of like, wow, actually. And I had this, a lot of people coming to me like, I had this vision, I had this dream, I had this, but when they come, they're still coming in a place of like, but I don't know, because they don't the traps of the world, the obligations they might have in life, family, careers, there are 3D careers, but they want to move out of, but it's like they can't move out of it right this second. So a lot of trepidation, a lot of challenges in how it comes and what they want to do with it. So some people really feel that, again, that gap of where they are right now and where they want to be. And okay, how do I move through this? And it becomes even more confusing to them, I think, when they start really awakening, realizing parts of their greater self if they're doing some past life regression suddenly or other lives, and suddenly they realize that they had some lives as a beautiful shaman or someone who has been doing some beautiful energy work and some different part of the past or future and doing some really beautiful things. And it's like, okay, wow, it's just now it's empowering you. It's time to bring it now here. But how do I do it? How do I bring all this experiences into life? So it's a lot of integration that needs to happen. A lot of processing needs to take place. So I think it's a lot to do. So it's a combination of really taking those things that are in your way of expressing those gifts, because we all know we all have been going through that process. So maybe we can go through that, even talking about ourselves or clients. Like, what is that process of feeling like you are just suddenly awakening to, whoa, there's something more?
I can totally share. Well, first of all, I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the beginning of like when it happened for me, and actually happened before the pandemic for me back in 2018. And it was like this shift. Like I had a nail salon. I think you guys know that. I was a makeup artist. I had a nail salon. I had a men's skincare company. I had all these businesses before I actually came into doing shamanism and healing work. And it was quite interesting. I remember driving home one day from my salon, which was on Melrose and Formosa. It was like right in West Hollywood. I drive up to Cahuenga. It's a street, and directly under Hollywood and Cahuenga, like you can see the Hollywood sign. And I remember just being in my little Audi, I'm like driving, like having all this money, like, you know, like a bag of money from the salon. And I'm like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I'm living the Hollywood life. It's great. And then all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, yes, like I'm doing it. And there was like this sinking feeling of emptiness that was wellowing up inside of me, because it was like my whole life, it's like, oh, I want to make money. I want to like do all this stuff. I wanted to like, you know, make a name for myself. I wanted to move to Hollywood. I wanted to do all this. And so like I started to do it, right? I was living it and I was like, yes. And in that moment, I was like, why am I so sad? Why am I feeling the worst I've ever felt in my life? Like something is happening. And in that moment, I was like, I recognize, I was like, something needs to shift, because the fact that like I have everything that I ever wanted, but I'm worse than when I first started off, something's off. And from that moment on, I don't even know what happened. It was like a whirlwind, like a tornado that was inside of me. Like everything just didn't feel right. Like I look in the mirror, I didn't feel like I look right. My body wasn't right. My lifestyle wasn't right. And everything just started to not make sense anymore. And then I went into like depression. It was so interesting how it all started for me, and like where I am now, which is like, as you guys know, it's very interesting. I left everything behind. I left all of it behind. I found out that my family were shamans. And then now, stepping into this role of becoming the shaman, like figuring out those gifts, because all my ancestors had already passed on. So it's just me. And, my dad never became a shaman. So it's like going through this and understanding what the gifts are and what life was actually trying to tell me, because it was like, you had all these things, but you're so unhappy. So are you actually on the right trajectory? So I kind of wanted to share that a little bit, because now that I see clients, I feel them, because they're like, I'm married, I have money, I have a great career, I have a house, I have all these things, but I'm so unhappy. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like the wounded healer, right? Like the wounded healer, you go through it and you kind of experience it, and you know it so well in yourself that when you hear a story from a client that's kind of similar, and you're like, oh, I may not understand everything you're going through, but it sounds very similar to something that I personally went through and that I wasn't so happy. And where I am now, I'm more than happy. I feel fulfilled. I feel happy. And so the process of it is kind of interesting, because it's like your life just goes, oh, look, and it like dumps you backwards, and like you're just kind of like, what happened to my life? So yeah, it's definitely an interesting journey. But what I really like is when I met Jennifer Rose a couple of months ago, when we were in the same class in school, and I ended up talking to her and approaching her and talking to her. What I love about you, Jennifer Rose, is that you have the ability to not only see, to sense and feel, and to help guide the other person to their greater purpose and gifts. And that's what I love, because that's what you did for me, because you took me on all these journeys and you were like, you have a gift to do this. And then Jennifer Rose introduced me to Harry, and now I'm taking Harry's classes. And then now I'm involved with all this, and it's just changed my life. Because for me, it's like, again, like my ancestors are all gone. So it's like, I'm learning shamanism and I'm learning different types of healing techniques, and I'm creating it to become my own one day. But through the process, it's like I'm learning and healing myself. And it's just so beautiful to meet two amazing, great souls like the both of you, who are very loving and giving and allowing and making that space, I feel, to help the other person grow into themselves. And I love that, because you're not selling. That's another thing too. I came from advertisement, and I hate when people sell to me. Like, stop selling to me, because it's like I have all these other people trying to sell to me on the daily. And it's nice to have real, authentic support and love and space to allow yourself to grow. And so I thought that this was such an important conversation, especially our first conversation to talk about, since I adore the both of you guys so much, and how you guys have both helped support me through my journey.
I'd love to pick up on that, because it's definitely my passion to help people in that way. But my awakening experience was very different than yours, in that it's gone on my entire life. Like, I remember moments as a child when I was talking to trees, and my best friend coming home from school was this beautiful tree. And I would every day come home and tell the tree my entire story and listen to its wisdom. And one day that tree was cut down. And I was so full of grief and so full of pain and sorrow in relationship to that became an awakening moment. My consciousness spread out in response to that. And I was suddenly able to hear all the trees. And they're telling me, oh, we're all connected. Or there's moments when I'm, coming into these spaces and suddenly, oh, I hear a spider, and the spider's showing me this fabric of the universe, and here's how you connect. And I just, from a young age, I had all these gifts and all these awarenesses that didn't make sense in the world. So I left school early and I backpacked through California, and I ended up studying polarity therapy and somatic emotional clearing in the Redwood Forest. And that was my own self-healing. In that moment, there was this group of people as we, graduated the class, and we were all doing a healing ceremony on each other. And there was a moment of awakening where suddenly, like, I could feel divinity. I could feel source or God. And I knew that my life had a purpose and a meaning. And I was so alone and distraught before that, searching for something. Why am I here? Why does this all feel pointless? And so it came as a response to that question, just like it came as a response to my grief. And then I'm moving through life and I'm hearing all these voices, and I don't know how to navigate them. Some of them are good. Some of them are not maybe the best influence. And so I became a shaman to learn, well, what is my higher self and what is my ego? What are these voices that have my highest good in mind, and which ones should I maybe banish from my experience, including the negative voices in my own self-talk. And then it became like this life path of embodiment to become a shaman in the Peruvian lineage, which I was studying. You have to embody all these virtues. And so that means showing up in love and showing up in trust and showing up in awareness. And I could just see how different parts of my life were out of alignment. And it was really hard to shift those things back into the space of empowerment, because I was really attached to them. And that's where, 9 years of training for shamanism came in, because it took 9 years to let go of my attachment to my ex-husband, and it took me meeting Harry and studying quantum healing methods, and him showing up in that space with unconditional love and meeting me in all of those places of vulnerability and holding my hand as I was afraid to walk around the block, and helping me to contact my own shaman, and, just like see if my energy field had progressed to the point where I could work on people, and with her blessing, stepping into that role and stepping into my empowerment. And step by step by step, I would have these moments of awakening. And in 2019, I had a very clear choice. Like, you can continue on this path of ascension, or you can stay where you're comfortable in your marriage. And in my case, that was not a healthy space to be. Not that he's not the most amazing person ever and a great father, but it wasn't in alignment. So the awakening there was, can you step up into this? Can you hold this role? Will you do it? And it was always a choice. And when I took that choice, again, just moments and series of awakenings. Like, awakening is a continual process for me. And, Harry's an ascension guide who's helped me to be able to hold that and to be that and to be everything that I am. And I'm really grateful.
Thank you. And it is about being a way shower for way showers. And that's been my mission and purpose. So I've been doing that for a long time, and being that guide to the other light workers, and showing them to their gifts, showing them to their potential and abilities. But there is also a process, because a lot of people are experiencing, I think, have great moments of spiritual awakening and great moments of like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then what? And then life, and then how to integrate it into their regular life, or how to start shifting the life. And that's where more guidance is necessary. And because it is a process, it's not like oh, that's it, I quit everything, I'm good, I am now enlightened. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. And in the process of the awakening to your gift, it's first of all letting go of the limiting beliefs of what you, because this is what you have known of yourself this far, and not like, oh, I can't be all this and this talent, I can't be a psychic channel, I can't be any of those things. And it's just letting go of those limiting beliefs around yourself is the first step. Like, oh, first of all, I can do this. And when you're getting this guidance, you're getting this connection, and like, no, this is a gift that you have, and you are receiving those gifts. And sometimes it's like, okay, so what do I do with it now? And sometimes it's like, okay, it's okay. It's part of the process. It is a process of building up, of creating, of constructing a certain set of skills and tools and abilities. And some people, it's just awakening. Again, I'm just give like I would say an easier example, because it's just one skill as far as psychic medium, for example, of being a good channel for those people who you are being a medium for. But even in that, there's a lot of skill, a lot of knowing, a lot of clarity, and getting yourself out of the way, and being more and more confident in your skills, more and more confident in being something that's a little different. So it's when we are stepping into that, there's so much that you need to let go of first. Those limiting beliefs, those fears, those and so it's a process of awakening. Is not just like, that's it, I'm awakened, I have the gifts, everything is good. It's really the process of integrating and really shifting. As Jennifer Rose is saying, it's those monumental moments in which you are making the choice. That's it. I'm done with this, and I am going to take that unbeaten path, because it is just my path, and it's not a path that no one has gone before, because it's not something that's a niche in society. It's something that you're exploring with yourself, or you want to do something new. So it's beautiful. And I have one client now that is awakening to that process, and already been in the process for a few years of like, okay, that's it, I know I need to do something different, but life gets in the way, and people pull back from that. And they're like, oh, I probably can't do that, because I know I can maybe if I practice, but pulling back from it. But it's important to know, to really listen to that inner compass. And I think that's what that's what I call what you described it as far as that moment. Like, no, I am actually not happy, because I am not I'm not having that deeper meaning to my life, that mission and purpose and direction, and it's tough to make that choice. So again, the first few moments are those moments of awareness, like, oh wow, I can do more, and then letting go of the fears, and then making the choice. So there's a lot of little mileposts that you are going through in this process of awakening, of moving towards all that you can be. And then in that process, you start making more and gaining more tools and progressing. And for me, as doing hypnotherapy for decades, it's even for me I remember that moment in which I had a client who was a good channel, and he was channeling his spirit guides and my spirit guides, and I was like a little frustrated at that point. It was years ago. Like, why can't I do channeling? And they simply laughed, and they laughed at me, and it's like, of course you can channel. You just need to know that you can, and you have the ability, and you're going to do it well. And at that point, I feel like, really? I don't know. It felt like a very foreign thing to me. I know how to help others do it. That's no problem. I can do that easily, but how can I do it? And then it took me a while to just a moment of realization of like, oh, I can. I didn't know I can, because till now I couldn't. So that those moments of awakening, of just really realization of like, oh, and then opening up. And then of course, since then I've been doing a lot of that automatic channeling and writing and connecting with guys and doing that on a daily basis now. So it's kind of fun to see that process, but it is a matter of like, again, making a decision and then dedicating yourself a little bit to it, at least making it like a serious hobby. And yeah, you don't have to change your life right away, but it's like, let's try to make it like a fun thing you're studying and moving along in. So I think that's an important part. All right.
I would love to talk about that because I actually give my clients homework. Like we'll interact and I'll feel their field and we'll go into this space of, well, you're really developing, empathic skills, or you're really developing, this light language communication, or maybe you're really tuning in to a lot of different levels of self that you would like to connect with more. And so around that, just finding that daily discipline, finding that way of connecting it to your everyday life. So it becomes an embodiment practice. This is a daily ritual that I can do to reinforce myself, to reinforce that space of connection. And I think that when you have that daily interaction with the greater self or with unity consciousness, and you're not just your small, human self, as you like to say, it's like, then you have this strength and this source of energy that you can refer to, and you're able to have that as a new anchoring point and a new point of empowerment for your own transitions and changes. So you have that resource, and it's not just you against the world. It's suddenly you are the world, but you're also, this greater, amazing space of awareness that's always existed. And then it becomes, well, what is the human self? Well, the human self is that driving point of evolution and change. And when you consciously connect to how important your thoughts are, how important your emotions are, how much you're showing up in the world, whether you choose it or not, suddenly all that's important is, I have a choice. Am I choosing to make the world a better place? Because every single moment I'm choosing, and I'm going to choose to think beautiful thoughts. I'm going to choose to believe that there's something in humanity and in this earth that's beautiful and purposeful. And obviously that's what motivates me. I'm crying. And so I'm like, yes, you're a part of me. I will empower you. You are beautiful. Here are all the gifts that you have, because everyone is important. Everyone has a gift. And I want you to be as powerful as you can possibly be, because we need you. There's no purpose without you. And so, meeting Ada, I could see her potential. I could see everything in her soul that was just ready to blossom. And sometimes that's the hard part, is being patient while they blossom into it themselves. But knowing that potential's there, I'm grasping for it. I'm like, I want this as much as you do. I might want it more than you do. What can I do to support you?
And I just want to pick it up from there, because I think that's so important, because one of the key elements that I hear all the time, and even like I would say 10 out of 10 of my clients say this to me: I'm going through this process, I have no one to support me. That's literally all I hear. My friends think I'm weird. I'm afraid to tell my husband. I'm afraid to tell my parents. I'm afraid to tell people. I don't want people to judge me. This is witchy. I think I'm, people think it's like I'm going spiritual, and because I've never been, and, I came from the church. And so now I feel that I'm being condemned. I swear I hear this like 10 out of 10 times. Like, there's different versions of it, but why I think what you both do are so important is that you hold so much like space for people. And I think anyone hearing this podcast right now, it's so important that you find someone that can truly support you, whether it's, a practitioner, whether it's, a therapist, whatever it is, so that you can have like a foundational support system. Because I truly believe humans are not meant to do things alone.
That's right.
And especially going through this right now, like, it's so important to have people believing in you. Even like the first time I met you, Jennifer, like, I've been on this process since, 2018, and I go in and out of spaces with different people who, have my back, but then, I go really deep into my spiritual self, and then it's like, oh, it's too much for me. And then they just disappear. And that's okay too, right? Because you have different people for certain periods. But what I feel like has been very consistent is, as I journey deeper into myself and become my own, support system, it's nice to come up out of my cave and be like, cool, I have these really rad friends that are here for me, that are willing to talk to me and like hear me out. And the most important thing is that they believe in me and see my potential. I think that is how people can come out of this murky water, is to have people like you, Jennifer Rose, and to have people like you, Harry, that can be like, I'm here for you, unconditional love. Here is the support. Because yeah, like again, like my clients are like, I don't know who to talk to. I feel like I'm crazy. I'm scared to do it because I'm, people are looking at me differently. Oh, I had a client who's a guy, and he used to be an atheist, and very good friend of mine, and ended up coming to see me because he's like, I've tried every single antidepressant medication, not working. I'm on Adderall, frying my brain, not working. Therapy for, over a decade, not working. And he's like, well, something's happening here. Nothing's working for me, Ada. And he's like, I'm going to try you because you're my friend. And he came to see me. And it's quite interesting because I found out a couple of things about him that I never knew. He was into witchcraft in terms of like green witch. He likes like herbs. He likes to talk to plants, but he was an atheist. And he was like, through discovering that he likes these things, he was like, I walk and I can hear the trees talk to me. And he's like, at first it freaked me out because I thought it was like maybe the medication that I've been on for the past decade. Like he didn't know. And so he was like, I started to explore. I bought the book, The Green Witch. And he was like, oh my God, there's this whole world out there, that I didn't know about. How amazing is that? And then he's been hiding it. He's been hiding it from his therapist. He's been hiding it from everyone in his life, his girlfriend. No one knows about this. He hides the book. I was like, what? And he's like, well, I don't want people to judge me. It's scary. And I'm like, oh, baby, no, like, let's talk about that even further. And, and now he's like coming to see me every 2 to 3 weeks because he's super excited to come share what he's learning.
Yeah.
To, step into that potential. So anyway,
yeah, and it's exactly that. It's moving into and finding a support system and support network, and that at least one person, and like, oh, okay, that person can support me, can help me. It's really is kind of mentoring and through mentoring, guiding through. And so it's always a pleasure to be that part for people. But one of the first thing I help people learn is also to get the support system from above them. So higher guidance from spirit guides, from light councils, from the other beings that are there for their highest good, and really learn how to connect with that, and then really feeling not alone, because you always have something to refer to, even when you are physically alone, or a feeling. So that feeling of isolation or loneliness, it immediately dissipates when people start to really do it on a regular basis, connecting with their spirit guides, getting the guidance, or even just getting that, is this the right path to follow? Is this in my highest good? And like, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Oh, thank God. Okay, so I'll do it. And I get that all the time, because again, I'm also doing that with my clients, of getting them into that place of like, no, this is it. This is what you want to do. This is what you're going to do. Don't worry about the details right now. We'll get to that. It might take a year, it might take 3. It doesn't matter. how you change your life. It doesn't have to be quick, doesn't have to be sudden and all that kind of stuff, but you can do that process of connecting and restoring the knowing of the deeper things that are within you, within your soul, within your essence, the skills and abilities that some of them you have to learn from other people, and some of them are self-learned as you do this work. And I think a lot of you can you can attest to that as well. As you do the work, you're like, oh wow, suddenly I'm actually connecting. I can feel what the client is feeling. That's weird. I'm like, oh no, actually that's okay. I can do that, and I can start learning how to subtly develop that skill and like, okay, I can do that when I want. I don't want to feel everybody when I walk down the supermarket because that's terrible. But I want to feel my client, so I can develop that on and off switch. So it's like, ooh, okay, so maybe I can start teaching that. So it's developing those little skills, and a lot of it. So I think it's more of a cascade. So snowball. Once you start opening one skill and a gift and awakening, it starts to roll another one. It's like, oh, and you see suddenly someone who's teaching you or is a little ahead of you on that path. And you say, oh, how can they do that? And then you realize that like just a few months later, oh, I can do it too. And then like, oh, that's fantastic. Okay, yet another skill added to the layers. It's beautiful. A beautiful process to witness.
And I think it's the most natural thing. Like people have these concepts and preconceptions about what reality is, but when you really study reality, science will talk about vibration. And when you get into vibration and you think about, how we're fundamentally vibrating in every level of our body, suddenly sound healing makes a little bit more sense. Or suddenly, like you understand there's this morphic field between people, and it's actually really natural to feel other people's feelings. Like we're programmed to do that as humans. We have these mirror neurons in our brains that are designed to do that. So any conditioning to say otherwise maybe should be what's being questioned. And then looking at other things, like how we're affecting each other, how we're, developing in those ways, and finding that it's more natural and easier and actually less work than the holding of those preconceptions in our mind, because they're heavy and they're keeping us in this density that isn't what we're meant to be doing. If we want to thrive, we have to let go of all that weight and allow ourselves to be light and free and really trust who we are. And who we are might be, this gift. It might be beyond this gift, but a recognition of your purpose and your soul and the fundamental nature of reality. And the more that you come into relationship with that, the less it's like, I'm weird and I feel crazy, and more like, well, maybe I'm here to show how we can relate to the world in a different way. And I would like to offer that to you and open that up to you, because as we're, allowing our brains to open and access that prefrontal cortex and all the potential there for synchronicity and intuition, that's the norm. And why is it that our norm is grief or fear or, purposelessness? Why is it that society isn't reaching these states and holding them and grasping them with everything that they have? Because do you want to be bliss and joy, or do you want to be anger and frustration? It's your choice.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. It's interesting because I feel like through my personal experience to discovering my gifts was to explore. That's all. It was like in the beginning, I was so scared. And I don't know if you both can have anything to say to this, but I was scared because I was like, oh, like something's happening. And so I started to explore different healing methods. At first, it was like, I think I need to take medicine because that's just Western world. And then I was like, no, I don't want that. I'm going to go the natural way. I'm going to do this and this, energy healing, Reiki. Like I started to just explore everything, psychedelics. I just went down a rabbit hole. And I feel like through that process, through expressing and exploring myself, then I was able to start feeling and integrating all of those experiences to then come to certain gifts. I don't know if you can speak to that, and like, but I feel like there's a lot of times where I would say to my clients, like they'd be like, I'm scared, but I really am thinking about, taking like a Reiki healing thing because, I've tried Reiki and I love it, but I'm so scared. I'm so scared. And it's like, there's a lot of fear around, when you're waking up and like, trying out these methods or modalities, but then there's these like fears. And so speaking with that and on that topic, like Jennifer Rose, like, is there anything that, in your experience that, or Harry, like in your experience that you could give advice on maybe some of the ways that people can break through those fears and expressing and allowing themselves to do that?
It's a constant flow between excitement of the new thing and the fear of judgment and fear of acceptance and rejection, which a lot of people have, and especially people who are awakening to the gifts, they have that deeper into their soul of like, okay, if I do this practice, if they've done any past lives, that they've done some kind of this kind of work in the past, and they've been either burnt, put on the stake, and or hung or killed for it. So there's deeper fears, even deeper than just social acceptance, which is getting easier and easier these days to get over. But the judgment of people, especially those people close to you, the family, the partner, and people around you, that is something that is difficult. And I've struggled with that a lot too. But like I knew I had my purpose is set in doing hypnotherapy and all the stuff around this, spiritual hypnotherapy especially. And I've studied many different things, but even with that, I always posted first of all, I have a master's in psychology, to be accepted first of all, to be like, okay, I'm also normal. I'm not just like some woo-woo, but let's talk about woo-woo stuff. So it's just bridging that gap, and it's feeling like it's hard to so luckily for me, I had the support of my family in that. But it still is the process within yourself, like to feel that you are putting yourself out there in a way that is exposing you, making you vulnerable. And people don't like to feel vulnerable. They don't like to feel judged. They don't like to feel rejected. And that's a lot of inner work that people who are moving and stepping into this awakening, even if it's just not as practitioners, but just as awakening to the path of spirituality and opening themselves to other understanding of who they are in a bigger way. It's just moving into the stronger practices of confidence and resilience and understanding, and separating, again, a lot of inner work about from your own value from and worth from other people's opinions. And that's a process that I think every one of us that has lived a human life have experienced, feeling judged by others, whether it's even their own social groups, and feeling rejected and feeling nobody likes to feel that. So it's learning how to overcome those fears and those challenges so you can move forward. And a lot of times it happens anyway. You're dragging the fears on because you're so passionate about it. But you still have the fears and you still have to let go of them. And I still had, again, even if I was already a practitioner for several years, I still had to work on myself. Like, no, I need to let go of that. That's because someone is not showing up doesn't mean that they don't like me. Doesn't mean that they don't accept me or like what I did, or like, so let go of all of that attachment to value from other people's opinions and judgments, and like becoming a stronger being. But again, it's a process of empowerment and self-love, which is a journey by itself. So combining it with that spiritual awakening, it's always a very valuable progression and ascension of the own self.
Yeah, I would say that my whole life I've been really driven to show up in my purpose, even if it didn't make sense. So when I was 17, or 16, my mom checked me into a mental institute, and I'm just hanging out there playing chess. And, the doctors are like, "Oh, you're fine." And as soon as I left, I ran away from home. I'm like, "No, I'm not crazy. I have a different way of viewing reality." And so finding that in myself and holding that, even when other people told me not to, and that would show up in my life in so many different people and so many different stories and so many different echoes in my head, and just facing that again and again. And every time, whether it's from a past life regression or whether it's from stepping into my power, it was just this, do I want this enough to step into that despite the fear, and to have the courage to, show up in the world? And for me, the key to that, were two things. One is radical truth. If I could be so honest with myself and really see what was going on, if I could look that in the eye and hold it in myself for even a moment, then those fears and insecurities would dissolve. And I could then step a little bit closer to my goal, which I didn't even know necessarily what my goal was. I just knew that I was going there. And then, finally, it's only been, less than a year, I would say less than 2 months, that I really feel like I have this deep sense of self-love. And suddenly the world is different. It's bright, it's friendly, it's like safe. And so getting into that space of self-love is a magnificent journey that's painful and full of heartbreak and full of all of your fears and everything you could possibly pile up against yourself. And then when you've managed to navigate through that, it is the most amazing feeling. And my whole life is an expression of that. Suddenly I'm a better mom. Suddenly the things that used to get in my way don't anymore. Suddenly I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning with this passion and drive, and there's nothing stopping me. And when I do get triggered, it's like I have compassion for that, and I understand what to do with that, and I can hold myself. I don't need someone else's approval. And yes, I want it. I love it. Please tell me you love me, but I don't need it. And again, that took my whole life, probably more than one lifetime. And I think that it's the key piece to ascension and the key piece to empowerment. Like, if you can do one thing, just one, learn how to love yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I was just gonna say, I wanted to, you know, share one last story about gifts. Is that when I woke up from my ayahuasca experience, I had an ayahuasca, my first real ayahuasca experience a couple of months ago. I woke up with complete amnesia. And in that moment, I didn't know who I was, where I am, or anything. I was in this house randomly with a bunch of random people that I didn't know, like in my mind. And I could hear my ancestors speak to me. So I hear them all the time, but it wasn't as strong as when I was on the medicine. It felt like they were there with me. And they said something to me that was so beautiful. And it kind of correlated to what you said right now. And I wanted to wrap things up with this, is that in that moment, when I felt as if I didn't know who I am, where I was, I looked at everyone and I said, who am I? And that's what I asked my ancestors. And they said, you are Ada and you are a shaman. And I asked them, is everyone here a shaman? And they said, no, honey, everyone here is special. And everyone here have their own gifts to give the world in this time of need very strongly. And you must help support them, to show them and have them remember all of who they are, where they're at right now. And that's your gift, is to help people remember. That is what shamans do. And I just felt this sense of love, like washing over me, of like my own self-love, right? Without the conditions of everything else. And then in that moment, I felt the love for them. And I felt like, okay, the first step is self-love of the self, and then loving all and seeing them from the place of, they also forgot, like me. And now we're just all working to remember those gifts that we have. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Beautiful. And just as a parting words, I would like to say, don't rob the world of your gifts just because you are afraid of judgment and all the other fears that might have in your way. So don't rob the world of your gifts. Let them shine bright. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for a good first episode, guys.
Absolutely. The most beautiful gift you could possibly have is self-love. And I love you both so much. This is such an honor to be with you today.
Pleasure. Thank you. Bye.